Hey everybody, welcome to my next listing, and here's a really cool one for you because you guys have been asking about, do you have any really good high performance basic turntables, maybe something where I can use my own RCA cables if you want to. Yes, I do. Here is a Pioneer PL-30, not an L, just a 30. This is the manual version of the L series of Pioneer decks. It's been recapped and restored. I've added a jack plate on the back with RCA, female ends. You can use your own interconnects on it. It is ready to rock, man. So with me, with the mighty Snoop Dogg here beside me, keeping me entertained, I don't know. Let's go ahead and take a look at the features and the functions of this really cool machine. So there's the Snoop Dogg. Yes, he is alive. Yeah, I see him move. People ask me if he's a stuffed animal. He's not. He's doing okay. I have to go teach him how to eat here after this because he goes and acts like he doesn't know how to eat until I stand by the bowl. And if I don't do that, 2 o'clock in the morning comes and he comes to me and acts like he's never eaten before, and I gotta go stand by the bowl. So anyway, he's doing great. We're doing great. I hope you are as well. Like I said, man, this Pioneer is really cool. If somebody's out there looking for a really nice high performance machine in this level, and you don't want all the bells and whistles, you don't care about lifting, you don't care about servos, you don't care about all that stuff, this is your turntable. It has been recapped and restored with Nichicons and Elnas and Panasonics. I lubed the motor, I lubed the arm and took it completely out, cleaned the VTA tube, it has VTA, readjusted the anti-skating spring on it, lubed the bearings for the arm. It's ready to rock, man. So let me go ahead, go around here, take a look at it. The 30 series has a more satin finished plinth, which is kind of a little bit more lush, and it hides fingerprints and stuff real well too. Adjustable feet, the whole bit, man. It's just like I said, it's a stupidly heavy turntable too. It's not a basic table. I think it weighs over 20 pounds because it was kind of a bear to pick up on here. Let me go around here and back, and I'll show you what I did here. There's a jack plate that I mounted on here. So it's got your RCAs and a separate ground. And cool thing about this, with arms like this, with no servo and stuff like that, it's easy to do, right? I mean, I don't believe, I'm not here to argue audiophile stuff with anybody. The more breaks you have in a cable, doesn't matter how good your cable is, it's never going to be as good as a straight piece of wire. But there's people out there who've got a lot of money invested in their RCA cables, and of course you can put way better cables on here than what comes with the turntable standard. So for the guys like that, and with no servo on here to add noise and stuff into the line, this is pure right to your preamp, man. It's ready to rock. So speaking of ready to rock, holy shit, man. I've been looking forward to doing these guys too. Even though nobody commented on my Yipes video, which I thought was the best video I'd ever done talking about a band because I had a personal story. I got a personal story about these guys too. So I'm going to take one more shot at it. But we're going to go the complete opposite of the last band I did, which was Lazarus, right? We're going to go off the deep biker end. Let's talk about the Gods. So my band of the day is Columbus, Ohio's own The Gods. I'm way too close and know way too much about this story to try to make this, I'm going to make this as short as I can. I hope I don't get too much in the weeds with the story. So anyway, The Gods formed in Columbus, Ohio in 1976. The original members were Bob Hill on guitar, Eric Moore, we're going to talk a lot about him because he was a crazy man. He's the biggest bullshit artist and craziest frontman probably in the history of Midwest rock and roll. A reviewer once said that Eric Moore made Ted Nugent look like Andy Williams. Okay? Yeah, he was right. Okay. They had 2 other original members of their band at the time. They had formed. And Eric Moore had an idea from the beginning. He says, we're going to be all white. We're going to paint all of our instruments white. We're going to get our drums white. Paint the amps, the PA, everything. We're just going to use white lights on stage. That's going to be our gimmick, white, okay? So they did that. And they got their promo packs and stuff done. And the drummer and the other guitar player had went down to West Virginia, where they were from, to pick up the promo packs that were going to be done with all their new look and everything. And they died in a car wreck. So before the band even got out, they lost 2 members. They also lost a roadie in a car wreck, but again, I'm getting in the weeds. So they go and find another couple guys. They find Mark Chatfield on guitar, and they find Glenn Cataline on the drums, and they become a full-blown version of the Gods. Well, within a couple of months in Columbus, they're just packing everything. Now, this is a biker style, heavy rock, drugs and booze and swearing and everything that's right and wrong with rock and roll was this band. These guys' lyrics make AC/DC lyrics look like Van Morrison lyrics, okay? I mean, just hardcore biker rock and roll. But they were selling out everywhere, all over camp, Ohio State Universities in Columbus, selling them out everywhere. So much so that Jimmy Ienner from Millennium Records, and this is what kind of brought this whole thing on. Remember when I did the Frankie and the Knockouts segment and the Yipes segment? And they were both signed to this weird label called Millennium that was Jimmy Ienner's. And he's like a music industry icon. His brother Donnie is ran Sony Record. I mean, they're royalty in the music business. So he had this label. I really think it was a tax write-off because he just had all different kind of odd artists, Canadian music parody comedy stuff and, heavy metal with the Gods and the Yipes and all, Anyway, they come to town, they see the band. The band doesn't even have a demo recorded. They don't have any promo pack because, those two guys are dead. So he signs the band, just hearing them live at a bar in Columbus one time. So he sign them, they get the great Don Brewer of Grand Funk Railroad, the drummer of Grand Funk, to produce the record. So they go up to Grand Funk Studio in Michigan. They get to use Grand Funk's gear, and they cut their first album, which is this album right here. In the meantime, they find out that there's another band in New York City called the Gods. So before they can get out of the gate, they got to go ahead and silence those guys out to keep the name. But they do, and they go and they put them out on the road with Angel. Now, if you think about Angel, they are all white outfits and guitars and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's why I put this guitar up here. This is a white, glitter rock white, 82 BC Rich, a Mockingbird. But, the main reason I did it was because one of you guys here bought the casino that was hanging here. Somebody says, hey, that's a cool guitar. Do you want to sell it? Yes. So I put this up in honor of that. That guitar's worth more than all the rest of the room put together, so it's going to go away. But with that being said, that's why it's there. So they go on this Heaven and Hell tour with Angel as the headliner. And, the Gods are the dark side, and they're opening up. And it was not good from the viewpoint that the Gods were the real deal and Angel was posers, man. I mean, the Gods would do so much raucous shit that literally the crew would have to sneak them out in road cases because the cops were like looking for them for just, lewd and lascivious acts, sundries, appearing backstage. I mean, just the craziness, right? So much so, the record company had to get involved to keep bailing them out of problems, okay? So that they do that deal with the road, they get off the road, they go to do their second album. And they got Don Brewer tagged to do it again, but they're going to do it not at Grand Funk Studio, but wait for it, at Bearsville. Now, if you remember the last segment I did with Lazarus, how Peter Yarrow, Peter Paul Murray took that Christian band under his wing and took them up to Woodstock and let them record in a brand new Bearsville studio. Yeah, that studio. So the same studio that made the Lazarus record cut this record. Well, Don Brewer, once he saw the band was really fucked up and they didn't have any real material together. Now, that's not me talking out of school. There's interviews with a bunch of the members since then and even recently where they're saying the exact same thing I'm saying. He quit. He left. He wasn't going to deal with that bullshit. And on top of that, Millennium Records folded. Jimmy Ienner decided to just let it go. And all these bands that were on Millennium got sent back to the parent company, which was Casablanca. And Casablanca had Angel. And they had Kiss. And they had Donna Summer. And you know what they didn't want to have? A fucking biker band who kept getting their lawyers called every week. So they put the record out. Eric Moore ends up producing it. He doesn't know how to produce a record. They're literally there's a song on the record called 714 because they all legally, they have doctor's prescriptions for Quaaludes. They were hooked on Quaaludes really hard, okay? And if for those of you kids who don't know, on a Quaalude is 714 is etched into the pill. And now you know. But anyway, they have a song on there called 714. So they get this record together. It goes out. It's got no real support. But, as a live band, these guys are infamous for the rowdiness of their shows and the craziness there. And they've had a loyal following of fans, and their fans are called the Machines, or the Rock and Roll Machines, because there's a song on this record right here called Gotta Keep Her Running that there's a big long, it's a 9-minute song. There's a big long rap where Eric Moore, it was literally live in the studio, was faking it as he made it. Talks about how the gods are machines, or rock and roll machines, like a robot kind of thing, right? Well, they put him out on the road opening for Triumph. Well, what was the album that Triumph was promoting on that tour? It was called, Rock and Roll Machines? Yeah. You can't make this. Somebody was either fucking with the band or was too stupid to breathe, and that's how. So that didn't go really well either. So after some disastrous shows with Triumph, Bob Hill and Glenn Cadeline, they leave the band. They're done. And of course, Millennium's done. They're basically going to get dropped. They've got a third option for a third record, and because they're such a great live band, there was going to be a chance that maybe they would make a third record. So Eric and Mark Chatfield are trying to keep it together. But right about that time, Eric gets into a really bad motorcycle accident. I mean, it fucks him up for a year. And by that time, everybody had kind of moved on their separate ways, and the Gods, the original version of the Gods was done, okay? This is the part where it gets really dicey, and I've had to stop the tape many times to kind of explain how this works. And I think the best way to do it is to take each individual band member and tell you what happened, because it's crazy. So the first one is Mark Chatfield, okay? Now, he, after the Gods broke up, he came back to Columbus, and Bob Hill and Glenn were here too, and they tried to put a couple bands together, Street Hard and some other stuff, but Bob and Glenn got out, okay? And Mark put this band together called Rosie. It was named for Rosie Palmer and the Five Fingers, if you don't know what I'm talking about, okay? Have your dad explain it to you. Anyway, that was Rosie, and they quickly became more popular than the Gods, probably because they weren't getting arrested every other night. I mean, just a really, really popular band. So they were on the cusp of making it big as well, except that right about that time, which would be right around 1981, Don Brewer, the Grand Funk drummer, calls up Mark Chatfield and says, hey, I just got the gig playing drums in Bob Seger's revamped Silver Bullet Band, and I recommended you as the guitar player. You want to join? And he goes up there. Another long story I'm leaving out short. He ends up becoming Bob Seger's guitar player for off and on for 15 years. Okay. So Rosie kind of got destroyed in the wake. Bob Hill is still living the dream of being a Gods member. He's one of those Facebook guys that, everybody goes to, oh, tell us about your stories on the road. He had next to nothing to do with it, and he's done nothing with them since, but he's got his devoted 48 followers, and he's doing his thing. Glenn Cadeline just got out of the business, period. He quit. But he went and got a job with J.P. Morgan Chase in 1982, and he sadly passed away in 2019. But he was with J.P. Morgan Chase for 33 years and was a big muckety-muck executive. So God, he turned that rock and roll into a world-class living, okay? Chatfield, okay, did the whole bit I was telling you about with the off and on again with Bob Seger. Another thing that he did that you guys might know about is he opened a guitar shop called Cowtown Guitars in Columbus, because Columbus is called Cowtown. And when he moved to Las Vegas a few years after that, he took the store with him. If you guys ever watched the show Pawn Stars, remember the whole with Chumley and all that kind of stuff, the History Channel show Pawn Stars. If you ever see them like reviewing, somebody brings in a really fancy guitar, they call Jesse, the guy from Cowtown Guitars, to come over and like verify it. Well, that's because Jesse and Mark were kind of sort of partners for a while, and then Jesse just basically bought him out. Okay, Mark got out of the business because he was on the road all the time. And Jesse ended up losing the business too. That's all. We're not going to get into that depth. But Cowtown Guitars is done. So that basically leaves me with Eric Moore. Okay, the wildest wild man, biggest bullshit artist in the history of history. Okay, you gotta love him. He treated everything like it was like he was Hulk Hogan on a WWE interview, right? Come on, bro. He lived a persona, all right? I mean, they had serious stories of sex and drugs and rock and roll debauchery, but he would just blow them up to all kind of proportion. So I'm not kidding you when I say there's been 40 different members of the Gods over the years. There's been a dozen different versions of the Gods over the years. But what happened was, after all these other guys had split up and quit, he put a version of the band together in like 1984. They had Freddie Salem, who used to be in the Outlaws, and a couple other guys. And they made a couple of records. One was called, well, the good one was called Mongolian, because it was basically the best tracks off the first record and a couple more songs added. And it actually broke loose in Europe and was pretty popular over there. So they got a following over there, okay? But like I say, he's been through 40 different deals. I mean, he's been to jail. He's had drug problems. He's had rehab problems. But he treats every show like it's going to be Shea Stadium and they're the Beatles. He would do these, 250-seat theaters in Zanesville, Ohio. And the local radio station would get him to do a promo commercial for him. And he would go in there acting like he was playing the Super Bowl. And he would just be like, amped up WWE type craziness, and people loved it. He was just a freaking showman. He really, really was. Okay, he had a lot of demons, had a lot of issues, but he always put on a great show. And he kept some kind of version of the Eric Moore Band or the Gods going all the way up until 2018, and then sadly in 2019 he had bladder cancer, and he finally ended up dying, passing away from that. So you'd say, okay, the band's over. Thank you, Mark. Let's go to the next section. No. So Mark Chatfield, as I mentioned, who had left Cowtown Guitars and all that kind of stuff. In 2019, he moved back to Columbus. I don't know if he was thinking about getting back together with Eric Moore, because they'd gotten together several times over I'm leaving a bunch of stuff out. They'd gotten together several times. Mark was putting a band together called Gods and Rosies, like a Guns and Roses, and so they could play like both bands' songs and be really popular. But that didn't work out. So when he comes back to town, Eric Moore dies. What do they decide to do? They decide to take some of those 40 members, including a girl. I don't know what how many people were in the band, and they form a new, quote unquote, like tribute Gods band called the Gods Resurrected. Not kidding. They got a bass player who even looks like Eric, sounds like Eric, and they play good old hard rock roll. They play most of the God stuff. They only play a couple of originals. They're trying to stay faithful. But between all the albums that they did and all the Rosie stuff, and there's been like 25 different re-releases of live concerts and all kind of, you can find them all over the web, And they were playing gigs in December here just last month as the Gods Resurrected. So they're still together and doing it. It's crazy. So anyway, that is the truncated story of the Gods. Let me go ahead and I'll change segments here, talk to you about this turntable real quick. It's a manual turntable. Should be pretty easy. And we'll show you the features and functions and play a little bit of God's music here. Thanks for checking it out. So to show you how this works, I did put a cartridge on here. This is that Grace F9 Ruby. It's pretty freaking cool. This turntable doesn't come with a cartridge. I'll give you a new head shell that'll go with it. This is one of those deals, like I said, somebody who's really, want a high performance turntable, but basic. You're gonna have, you're gonna put your high end cables on here. You're gonna put a nice cartridge on here and rock out with your cock out, because it is just a really cool, great sounding turntable. So anyway, it's manual, so it's pretty effing easy. You got a power button right here. It turns it on. Okay. You have a speed selector for 33 or 45. Hit that, right? This is your start button. When you start it, it will lock to 33. You change it, it'll lock to 45. You go back, it goes back to 33, or you stop it. Let me do that again. So you start it, it's on 45, you go back to 33, you stop it. This has got a standard SME style removable head shell, S-arm here, manual cueing, spring-loaded anti-skid. There's no electronic bullshit, nothing going on here. This does have their oiling system that I don't use. You can pull this cap off and put damping fluid in there if you want to dampen the resonance. Yeah, okay. Yeah. You guys know my theory about that. You have VTA adjustment. There's a set screw here and here. You loosen those. You can lift the arm up and down. And this is just a regular old ballast style counterweight. You want to set this thing to 2 grams, get your gauge out, move the arm over, set it to 2 grams. Bob's your uncle. As I mentioned back here, I put a plate on it, and your left and right and your ground. You can put your own RCA cables on it. You still don't want to go over maybe 4 or 5 feet until you go to a phono preamp, just because. So don't think you can put a 20-foot cable on here and think it's going to be great. But for you guys who got your own cables and do what you want to do, there you go. So when you want to play a record on this thing, and like I say, all these songs, I didn't know which one to play. I was going to play Gotta Keep Running, but it's like 2 minutes to even get into the part. I'm just going to play the first song off the first Gods album here. It's called Go Away. It kind of gets to the point. You just move the arm over here where you want it to be. You start the turntable. You lower down the queuing. You step back, and you listen to the Gods. Check them out. And like I said, just good straight ahead freaking rock and roll. Probably don't want to play it with your daughter around. I don't know. Maybe you do. But, you know, they're not that crazy bad. It's just, you know, some hardcore great rock and roll. And this is Columbus, Ohio's own The Gods. And this is the crazy cool Pioneer PL-30 turntable. Let me go ahead. I'll put the dust cover down. It's actually, dust cover's in nice shape. And wrap this thing up for you, show you how you can make it your own. So everybody, with the dust cover down, let's go to the bat. This thing freaking rocks. It is a heavy-duty, manual, direct drive, Pioneer PL-30 turntable. Pretty darn rare, because I don't think there was that much price difference back in the day to get into the semi-automatic model. But for purists who just want to have as much of a straight line as they can get to get the sound, this is it. And that's why I thought, well, with this thing, I got so many people asking about, you know, can I use my own cables? That, you know, there's a lot of real estate under there because there's no servo and stuff, you know. And I went ahead and put a plate on there so you can run your own RCA cables with it. So like I said, this dust cover is in really nice shape. I don't think you're going to need to exchange it or get another one. You could probably polish it better than me because I don't have that kind of motor strength anymore in my hands after my accident. But with that being said, man, can't beat it. This thing's freaking killer. So with that all being said, you can grab this turntable for $585 plus the shipping. I know. I mean, beat it. Go ahead. Try to find a turntable that's built like this freaking tank. You know, it's basic and simple and stupid like me. It's just ready to freaking rock. So man, hit me up. I only do Zelle. I only do PayPal, friends and family. Thank you, Joe. And we, you know, that's how we do it. So the next turntable I have coming up, God, I don't know what it is. It might even be another 59L Denon. Maybe, I don't know. I've got a JVC QLY5 that's kind of on the wings as well. That might actually be next. I mean, I just kind of take them as I get them done, and I'm just trying to take it easy in this mess because, like I said, it just, I'm getting old. My dog's getting old. I like petting my dog. I just do this for fun. And I enjoy doing the music segments as much, if not more, than doing the turntables after 700 of them. So anyway, guys, I hope you're all doing great. Hope you enjoyed the story there. Hit me up if you want this thing. Check out my other listings. Like I say, for something that you see that you want, I can do, you know, I'll find you something. I'll pay me a little deposit. I'll go get you whatever it is you want that I've already done. You get you another example of it. So that's why I keep those up there. Plus, some of you guys are liking the music segments, that there's a whole plethora of my musical stupidity knowledge going on back there. So thank y'all again. I appreciate you. Check it out, and we will catch up with you soon. Take care, everybody.